In yesterday's previews, it was revealed that Liliana the Veil is coming back to Standard, and if it's the first time since its original printing in 2011's Innistrad set, this particular Planeswalker was once one of the most powerful Planeswalkers in the entire game, regardless of format. But today's video is going to ask, how does it actually stack up against modern-day Planeswalkers? The short answer is it depends. We really have to dig down deep to figure out, is this card really worth the hype it's getting, or is it just living off of name recognition at this point? First, we're going to have to look at the alternatives to using Liliana in the format that's going to be available after rotation for Standard. We're going to have Liliana herself, you're going to have Obnixilis the Adversary, Kaya Geist Hunter, you're also going to have Sorin the Mirthless, and Kaito Shizuki. Of those 5 Planeswalkers, not counting Liliana herself, the only other one you're going to have a similar thing for is Obnixilis the Adversary, because he also discards like her. So let's take a closer look at this. In a vacuum, I think that Obnixilis is a better card for discarding, and it's basically because A, he can copy himself, and B, he deals damage if they refuse to discard the cards. So in the end, either you get something good out of them, or something at least, or they're taking damage for this stuff. And if you have a devil on the board, you're going to end up gaining life at the same time. Whereas Liliana, all she can do is either make both of you discard a card, so it's a symmetrical discard, not an asymmetrical like Obnixilis. And she can only make you make them sacrifice one creature, and that's it. That's all you're getting out of her. The other Planeswalkers really don't deal in that vein, but otherwise, right now, I don't think she is as great, but let's look at some of the other formats and see what she could possibly do, because it could just be a format dependency as well. Maybe in Standard she's not that great, but maybe in other formats she'll be really good. The next thing that'll answer this question is, how good is it going to see play in other formats? Right now, the largest share of play is in Jund in Modern, and it's not played that much. I think it's only like a 2 of in that deck, versus like what's going on now in Standard and Pioneer. So I think in the end, Pioneer might be the biggest beneficiary of this, but let's take a look. What Standard decks might actually want this card? With the rotation coming, you could see a Reanimator style deck come out of this, where you're ditching your cards during the symmetrical discard to get a target in the graveyard and then bring it back with something like Graveyard Shift or Diregraph Rebirth. Rakdos also could be a possibility. It could go from more of a sacrifice engine to a more of a mid-range build, where you're going to want to keep the Planeswalkers around and use them as a value engine, and she might fit in there, and you might combine her with Obnixilis to kind of get a critical mass of discard going on, because if you dump their hand and then you keep plussing Obnixilis, he's going to get them for 2 damage no matter what at that point. And then depending on what vehicles get introduced in Dominaria United, we might have a Greasefang deck that comes out of Standard that's actually pretty good. We just have to kind of wait and see what comes out of the new previews. So for Pioneer, what would this do? Well, speaking of Greasefang, hello. It's probably one of the biggest, scariest decks in the Pioneer format, and regardless of color combination, and there's 3 of them, there's the Abzan, the Mardu, and the Esper version, this deck is probably going to want at least a couple copies of Liliana the Veil, because then you get to pitch Parhelion 2 to her plus, and then you can sit there and just next turn bring it back from the grave, and you're ready to rock and roll. Another deck in there that could use it is the Rakdos mid-range deck. It's probably the most powerful deck in Pioneer right now, and this is just going to make it better. And then things like Kroxa, as you're discarding cards, you're just giving him stuff to escape with. And you might actually even see cards like that new Squee get involved, because he has essentially what is Escape without a keyword on it, as you're ditching stuff, and you can play him back from the graveyard. So, you can ditch him into the graveyard and then just play him back. And then one other deck that I think is kind of fringe at the moment for Pioneer, but I've seen decent results for it, is Black Devotion. There's already a lot of like double black creatures that are in that format that the pips are going to really help with, and if you're able to play Liliana the Veil, you're just going to add something that's a little bit harder to get rid of, and you're also going to be able to kill opposing blockers. So if you go like turn 1 drop, turn 2 Aetherborn Vampire, and then you kill a creature on turn 3 and free swing, you've already got most of your devotion that you need, and then you just drop a Gary on a turn or two later, and you're slamming down for probably what 8 to 10 devotion damage off of him. That's pretty damn good. So I'm gonna keep an eye on this deck. This could be something, especially with whatever else is coming out of Dominaria United. So for Commander, what would really want to use this? It's already seen in some Commander decks. However, it's not seen in a whole lot of them because a $70 price tag kind of keeps a card out of most casual tables. It's kind of a pricey card right now, but it is already falling thanks to the reprint announcement. So what decks would want this? Well, obviously, Turgid God of Fright, because it's steal your shit deck, and this thing hits all the modes. You make them discard something. If they discard a permanent, it's yours. You -2, hey, sack your creature, it's mine. -6 it, half your stuff is mine. What's there to lose there? We also have Tiny Bones Trinket Thief, which is just all about discard because you want to dump hands as quickly as possible, and he will help with that. And then you activate his ability and start smashing people in the teeth for 10 damage activation. It's really good. And then I would also say just about any Reanimator style deck in Commander would also want this. This is a good upgrade for Reanimator commanders. Things like Carador Ghost Chieftain, Shieldred Whispering One, or even Mirren of Clan Neltoth would be a great home for Liliana the Veil. And just like with a standard version of Reanimator, you're going to dump your targets to the +1 and then bring it back with a reanimation spell. But the advantage that Commander has is there are a lot better reanimation spells in the format available than there are in Standard. Most Standard reanimation spells, they cost 5. You have them as cheap as 1, depending on what you're willing to pay for it. So you could actually have a play pattern, especially in Carador or in Mirren, where you could do like a turn 1 Elf of Deep Shadow, turn 2 Liliana the Veil, dumping off some big reanimator target, and then turn 3 you could reanimate dead and bring it back, and you have a turn 3 like 8/8 or something stupid like that coming out. I mean, hell, if you had Mox Amber in the deck, you could feasibly do that on turn 2 by slamming the Elf, Liliana. I mean, this is Magic Christmas Land, and then use the actual reanimate spell for 1 black, pay the life equal to the, I think it's the CMC or the power and toughness. I can't remember off the top of my head. I'll look at it here in a bit. But there's a lot of possibilities here with this in Commander, and I think because the price of it going down, it's gonna show up more than you'll ever see it before because it's just gonna be more available now for players. So what do you all think? Do you think Liliana the Veil has any play power, or do you just think she is just meh, whatever, who cares? She's had her time in the sun and it's just a neat little reprint. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comments below, and as always, thank you for watching and have a great day.